Andrew, how are you?
Good. I'm well. How are you, Steve?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's been a little while since we talked, and I'm working my way through the Cloud Lighthouse roster.
Y- Who have you who have you had so far?
Huntingford so far, and
Okay.
so I've got Mark left, and I'm gonna see if I can get your lovely wife to join us and spill all the beans
Do it.
at some
Do
point.
it. Do it.
So, Huntingford asked me to comment on the largest ever deployment that you did of Dynamics 365, and in particular, did you use best practices on it? I
What,
don't know what he meant by that.
what kind of I have I have so many questions. I told Lucy Bourne once that I had to be this was years ago because I haven't touched Dynamics in a long time.
Sure.
But I did tell Lucy Bourne years ago that I probably, if you take the ratio of numbers of times that you've deployed Dynamics versus the number of times you've deployed Dynamics for the purpose of it being used as a CRM or a sales
Mm,
tool in any way, I had to have the
yep.
worst ratio on the planet because the number of Dynamics deployments was probably about 35 or 40, and the number of times it had been deployed to be a CRM was zero. And to this day, I
Yeah.
have still never deployed Dynamics for the purpose of actually doing the job that it was intended to do. So I don't know if that's what Chris was getting at, but
Yeah,
that's what comes to
it
mind.
may be. Well, of
Yeah.
course, I've got a lengthy agenda here I want to go through. I'm just kidding. I don't have an agenda. I never have an
Yeah, I was gonna
agenda.
say, yeah, we're just gonna is this a segment of Steve is artificially intelligent? Is that what
It is
is
indeed.
that the show
It
that
is
I'm on?
indeed. Yeah,
Nice.
basically, my goal with this is just to get smarter than me people on and pick their brains. To make myself smarter under the guise of a podcast. I'm only publishing them so you guys will believe me. Really, I'm just trying to pick people's brains. So it's a
Fine.
perfect opportunity. I've been following obviously what you guys have been doing since you started with Cloud Lighthouse and now the Center for Trustworthy AI. I put it. It's similar. I remember years ago, shortly after Power Platform had launched.
Mhm.
Yuka Niernan, I think you know Yuka,
I do.
and a handful of guys started a company called Forever Forward,
Hmm.
which was 100% Power Platform. Very early days, and I remember looking at. I know he's since moved on. I have no idea what they're doing now, but I remember thinking at the time, man, that's bold. I mean, Dynamics is what we're all making a living on, and doing a little bit of
Except for
Power
me.
Platform stuff.
Except for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
except for you, yeah, you were doing other things, using the Dynamics platform for those
I,
other things. But
we were just hijacking it. We just hijacked
yeah,
XRM to suit our own purposes. But anyway, sorry, I took you off track.
no, no worries. But I thought it was pretty bold, and I know they did quite well. They grew quite a bit, but I thought, man, that's really early to go all in on something and leave everything else behind. And then I'm
Yeah.
watching you guys kind of very similarly, very quickly, going all in on the AI front, in particular the Center for Trustworthy AI angle, and it also feels similarly bold to me. Am I not am I wrong?
So first of all, thank you because I feel like I feel like unless you're being a misbehaved child, like my 3 year old from time to time, bold is always quite a compliment. She is sometimes bold in a non-complimentary way, but but also just to for the comparison with Forward Forever because that's a an organization that I have a lot of respect for. I have a lot of respect for what they did, and I have a lot of respect for their talent. Listen, I think that there are different ways to approach this, but I'm going to start with this. There are in the world of AI, there are I see three camps emerging, particularly amongst technologists, but I think often amongst end users as well. And those camps are the optimists, the deniers, and I don't have a great name for the other camp, but I refer to them as the ragers, right? And I don't mean ragers as in what a great party this is. I mean people who seem just full of rage at the investments that are being made in AI and the direction that AI is going. And of course, that mental model is nuanced, but I very much consider myself, and I know that all of us at the Center for Trustworthy AI are AI optimists. Now, I don't know a single AI optimist who is possessed of an unbridled, unrestrained love and carefree attitude about AI, right? I think that to be
It's
an
not
AI,
blind
no,
optimism.
no, no, it's not blind optimism, but I think that it's a question of do you believe do you believe that AI can be an extraordinarily positive force in the world? I say yes. Now, I think I'm actually in the middle of writing when I stopped to begin this podcast, right? But I'm in the middle of writing an article. The title of the article, the working title is "These Are the Days of Miracle and Wonder," and it's based on Paul Simon's song "The Boy in the Bubble," which came out in 1986 on, I think, I will say, the greatest album of my lifetime.
Okay,
And it's a great song, um, because it captures the I think the techno optimism of the time. These are the days of miracle and wonder. This is the long distance call. The way the camera follows us in slow mo, but it
sure, sure,
also has these elements of some of the destructive forces in the world, terrorism, and what I think we now would think of as being climate change, but the awareness of that, I think at that point in time we were still really hung up on the hole in the ozone layer. But in any case, how these negative or these tragic forces in the in of humankind and in the natural world are unfolding at the same time as this great optimism. And I think that it's a really appropriate metaphor for today in that the AI optimists that I know believe by and large that AI must be judiciously and thoughtfully employed with guardrails and beyond guardrails, wisdom in how it is used, and what is required to make AI trustworthy. So that's a long way of saying that I think the center it's an ambitious project. It terrifies me on a daily basis just how much there is to be done. But I think it's an important project, and I think that those of us who are involved with it, those of us who are doing this work, would probably unanimously say that it's likely the most consequential work of any of our careers at this point.
yeah, yeah. It certainly feels like it. I would say you mentioned words like boundaries, governance, and stuff like that, and I think that's a piece that I think too many people don't understand. They're out there looking at Chat GTP and feeling like they've got a handle on AI from there. And I was actually talking to a fairly large customer yesterday who was telling me how the company had just gone out and bought enterprise ChatGTP. I thought he was about to say, co-pilots, but he said
Hmm.
ChatGTP. And I'm thinking, is everybody making recipes in there, or what are they doing? I mean, but it's funny how a lot of people, that's their experience. That was their first experience, and then when you say boundaries, because I also have people say, I tried Copilot, and I get more results from ChatGTP. Well, it's because it doesn't have any guardrails. It's exactly the kind of stuff you're talking about. So, how do we get? How do we? I mean, there's definitely a hunger for AI among the C-suite in particular. They don't even know what it is. They want
Hmm.
them some AI, whatever it is, because they just think it's going
Yeah.
to be the magic problem solver. But how do we get them to really understand what it is we're talking about? And when you say something like boundaries, that's a legitimate concept around AI that a lot of people just don't think exists.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. And and I'll give you a summary up front so you can help me remember everything that I thought, and we can come back to it. So,
Yeah, count on
the,
my
the,
memory, you're in trouble.
so anyone who knows the two of us knows that this may not work. So the first thing that I'll touch on in a moment is this is the idea of governance and fairness. The second thing that I think we can talk about is that tactical idea, right? Of I tried Copilot and I get better results from ChatGPT. And then I think the third thing, let's dig in to some of what we're seeing as the potential harm of AI. And then maybe what executives need to be thinking about as they lead their organizations into this era. So
I already forgot the
there you
first
go.
one. Go
All right, all right,
ahead.
all right.
Don't rely
So
on my memory.
no, the first one, the first point that you made about governance is that I when I hear people talk about trustworthy AI today, I think almost everyone thinks of trustworthy AI as being either about governance or about fairness. And my answer to them is that, well, yes, it is bit about those two things, but AI, in order to be trustworthy to an organization, trustworthy to an individual, trustworthy to humankind, right? But I'm going to focus on the organization here because that's where I do most of my work. Is how does a discrete organization use AI in a trustworthy way? It can't all be a question of governance or fairness and bias, right? It has to be a question of, can the organization trust that the investments that they're making in AI are wise? Can they trust that those investments in their choice of technology is scalable over the long term so they're not throwing good money after bad? Can the organization trust that their data is going to allow AI to produce results that are useful and impactful and actually help them solve their particular challenges, whether you're a whether you're a law firm trying to make your very well-paid, high-priced lawyers more efficient, or whether you're the United Nations looking to use AI to identify human rights issues before they become severe and extreme, right? So there's lots of different takes on what that data is showing you, but you have to be able to trust the data. And I think you also have to be able to trust that you've built a workforce culture that is capable and literate in AI and other digital technologies to be able to use this stuff in a productive way. So to me, trustworthy AI, you really do it a disservice if you jump straight to the governance or if you jump straight to the fairness and bias issue because you've skipped all of these other things in between that allow you to have well-governed, fair, and unbiased AI, right? So I think that's a really important issue, a really
Sure.
important consideration is that we're not always just talking about governance. We're talking about so much more than that.
I think I recall. I mean, I've been at this for quite a while, and I can remember when charts and graphs were new. So I'm going back. I'm going
And
back
they
a
were
ways.
printed. You had to go down to the basement and get someone to print it on a foam board for you, and carry an easel,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah.
But you talk to business leaders, particularly in sales or anywhere in leadership of business, and they kind of operated on intuition
Hmm.
and gut feel and maybe just looking at the balance in the bank account and extrapolating, but they really thought that they were on target with what
Hmm.
they were thinking until
Yep.
charts and graphs came out. And then we started actually showing them some data that diverged significantly from what they were thinking, and they didn't trust it. They didn't trust the
Hmm.
data because it just diverged so much from what they had been thinking. That can't be right, and ultimately, it takes quite a bit of effort to convince them. Nowadays, I think most people look at a charter graph and they assume if it was put together properly, it's a better representation than the seat of their pants.
Hmm.
And we may be in a similar inflection with AI where I think the trustworthiness, is coming. It's kind of around the corner, but they're looking at their charts and graphs, which
Hmm.
frankly, we know charts and graphs are, they're based on a bunch of numbers that could be good, bad, or otherwise. You could make the argument in a lot of cases, AI will take information and provide a more valid trajectory from it than a chart or a graph.
Hmm.
But of course, now they've gone from swearing by their intuition to swearing by their charts and graphs, and AI will be the next thing that'll have to get over that hurdle.
So, so I believe it or not, have never been a there's this quote that I think I've heard attributed to the former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, but I might have this wrong. I don't know why I think he said this, but something to the effect of, um, "In God we trust, everyone else bring data."
Hmm.
But I've never been looked at data or charts and graphs or AI now as being an input to the human to the human decision making process, right? So it kind of a philosophy that I would say is informed by Colin Powell's rules. Colin Powell famously had these 13 rules of leadership and rules of life, and one of them, I looked it up just now, is don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. Superb leadership is often a matter of superb instinct. When faced with a tough decision, use the time available to gather information that will inform your instinct. So I've always thought that, folks who are true dyed in the wool data weenies, that every decision they're going to make is comes down to looking at the data. That's not my type. That's not my
Very
style.
binary. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Literally,
yeah. That's
literally
right,
binary.
right, exactly, literally. Um, which, which I think it was Donna Sarkar said recently. So our daughter, mine and Anna's daughter, Alexandra, she is now at a 3-year-old level, but she's now fairly well trilingual in English, Spanish, and Romanian. And Donna laughed recently and said that she needs to learn to speak in binary next, um, which made me giggle. But
I
yeah.
tell you what, having a kid that can speak three languages is a gift, and the time to have it happen is at the age they are, that you're talking about, because then, you know, they get. I mean, I've been living in Brazil now for, 2 years, just about. I
Hmm.
still, my vocabulary is up to about 12 words now. So it's just hard to it's hard to penetrate an old rock, With the kids are just sponges. It's so easy for them to pick up. Vlad, my partner Vlad, his son is now speaking both Ukrainian, Russian, and British English, which
Hmm. Hmm.
and he tends to mix words in the sentence. So it's a
Yeah.
very interesting, very interesting conversation.
We got a sentence out of Alexandra a while back, which was something along the lines of, she picked, so her grandparents have this very pliant cat that allows Alexandra to pick the cat up and just walk around with the cat. I don't get it. But anyway, Alexandra picks the cat up and um she says, my pisica needs to go pisica needs to go afuera. Open this, and demands that the door be opened. So we get pisica is Romanian for cat, but we get a lot of English, Romanian, and
Yeah,
Spanish
yeah.
combo sentences. It is true.
Yeah, well, that's one reason why my nobody can understand when I'm talking to my wife, not an English speaker or a Brazilian speaker, because she would use the wrong word or I would use the wrong word, but we've understood what we meant, so we've just
Yeah,
accepted it. So now
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that to anyone speaking the language, we must sound like we're speaking gibberish. It's like our own language. Oh well. To move on. To move on.
Move on.
We've been. I've never been one to be afraid to jump out and try and be bold if I thought there was an opportunity.
Hmm.
Even more so if I was nervous about what I was doing potentially going to collapse on me. So the
Yeah.
motivation is definitely there, and I think it's real. We're actually reviving the ForceWorks brand, which we'd kind of put dormant for a while to focus on Rapid Start and
Hmm.
some other things, but we're bringing that back as ForceWorks Next, and
I
that's
thought it
going to
was
be
called I thought it was called Forkle Works. That's the was
Oracle Works. Yeah,
wasn't that what
that might.
you called it in Betty from Sally from HR from that series or something?
Oh
It
yeah,
was Forkle
yeah.
Works.
Oracle Works. Yeah, I didn't want to
Yeah.
be too obvious, you
No,
know.
I know. I know.
But we're gonna bring that back. It's live now, but I'm still in the middle of working on it. So frankly, I won't be releasing this until it's a little more finished, in case anybody wants to look at it. But yeah, trying to take an AI first approach around business applications in particular, because that's the space that we know. And I think there's some partners out there that are thinking the same way. But just like cloud, right? When cloud came around, everybody sat on it, and, sat on the sidelines on premise and just watched it for way
Hmm.
too long before they jumped in. And you and I have had this conversation about partners in previous calls that they're slow to act. And I know there were partners that didn't survive the transition to cloud back
Hmm.
when they couldn't get out of their own way and didn't survive. There was also opportunity for upstarts. As a lot of the successful cloud companies now didn't exist.
Hmm.
Kind of came out of thin air, saw the opportunity and grasped it. I think we're at a similar inflection point with AI now, where there will be a bunch of companies that will sit on the sidelines, and there will be those that kind of grab the bull by the horns. And 5 years from now, we'll see a whole different mix of who are the most important partners in Microsoft's ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah. So I know we've talked about this before, so I won't dwell on it too much, but I do think that we're seeing way too many partners that are falling into the denier camp, and this takes different forms, right? You've got this is gonna be a nice structured podcast. We'll go to the deniers now, and then we'll go to the ragers, right? Um, but the deniers, I think it takes a couple of different forms, right? Some of it, I hear this from some partners, right? That excuse me, they see data and AI as a way to prop up their legacy business, right? Like we need to get into the data and the AI in order to ensure the survival of our dynamics business. To which,
Buying
just
time,
as an
buying
example,
time. That's just
but
buying time.
you're buying time. You're buying time, and I think that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think that if anything, the Dynamics Minds conference in Slovenia every year, I have said on podcasts and in writing many, many times that it is by far the best Microsoft event on the calendar. But I think that a lot of folks, individuals and partners, actually sort of misuse it or don't categorize what they learn correctly in their mind, because I think that this big party and this great opportunity to learn and to connect with like-minded people at this great event, for some, it has the perverse impact of convincing people that the world isn't really changing because look how great all of
Yeah,
this is, and that they can
yeah.
carry on doing business as usual. And then you have things like in the keynote a couple of months ago there, when there was this absolutely foolish slide that someone from Microsoft put up during the keynote, and it said, "This is the golden age of business applications." And I think that it was not only a foolish slide, it was a dangerous slide, because it's Microsoft telling people that their dying industry is in its golden age. And I think
Well,
that,
we
yeah,
know what P and L
it's
he's
just crazy.
P and L driven. We know what P and L he's responsible
Right.
for.
Right.
I think that a lot of the deniers and ragers, and again, they played around with ChatGTP maybe and decided, well, that's no way that
Yeah.
could do anything about me. And I agree with a lot of folks. I myself consider myself becoming a semi-professional vibe coder. I definitely wouldn't say
Right.
professional, but semi-professional vibe coder, in that I've been doing a lot with it and
Hmm.
really learning how to use the tool. And every time I do, I just keep thinking, man, in the hands of somebody who actually knew what the hell they were doing, you know,
Hmm.
this would be amazing. And I think
Hmm.
that's where we're going to have to get to, because vibe coding, it's a silly name. It's got a bad rap for a good reason, because you got a bunch of bozos like me out there trying to make stuff with it.
Yeah.
But I think that, but when I look at our team, of professional developers who are following our lead on AI, and introducing similar tools that I'm using, but they're using them through the hands of a professional developer who knows what he's looking at, knows how to architect. So I wouldn't call it vibe coding there. Maybe AI
Y-
assisted or something, but they're letting AI write a lot of code, but that's no different than when they had all the juniors writing a lot of code and they still went and scanned it all and looked at it all and looked for
mm,
problems. The same thing. They're just using AI instead of a junior. And I think that is a motion that more of them should be thinking about instead of just poo-pooing the tool. Because I wrote them out in a shitty little apps, but poo-pooing people that made garbage out of Power Platform because they didn't know what they were doing. Well, the same thing lives now. It's people gonna make garbage.
I quoted you. I quoted you recently to a client. So a client of mine, he's the chief digital officer at a big organization, and he calls me. It was funny. He called me. He was on leave, and I said, "What are you up to?" And he said, "Oh, I'm on leave." And I said, "So calling me to talk about vibe coding is what you do when you're on vacation?" So
Yeah,
so so anyway, which by the way, another client told Chris Huntingford and I yesterday that working on vacation is like stealing productivity from the future, which is my favorite phrase this week. Is I think it's great. But anyway, so this guy, this fellow, a great guy, calls me and he says, we got a quote from a partner to build something. It was way too much, so we thought we'd build it ourselves. We screwed around with various AI tools for 4.5 hours, and then once we found the right one, it took us 15 minutes to actually build the app we need. And he said, he asked me, do you think this is the future? Do you think that what we do is we build apps like this very quickly, or we build solutions like this very quickly, and then we turn it over to a partner, and we only pay the partner what we need to actually implement it, like get it into production. And I said, I think that it's the future, but not for the reasons you think it is.
yeah.
And he asked me to explain, and this is where I said, there's this article, Steve Mordew wrote it a couple of years back, and it was called A Mountain of Shitty Little Apps. And I found the thing, and I sent him the link to the article, and I said, listen, the the issue here is that vibe coding, there's a lot about vibe coding that reminds me of the early days of the low code era, right? When Microsoft was running around telling people that Power Platform was so easy that any idiot could do it. And
Mhm.
so to me, what both of those technologies have in common is that they are tools in the hands of people who lack the wisdom and the experience in a to use them properly. And by properly, I mean in a scalable, sustainable way. So I do
Sure.
think that vibe coding is going to produce a mountain of shitty little vibe coded tools. But I
Hmm.
also think that vibe coding, as you described it, in the hands of people who know what they're talking about and people who know what they're doing and are grounded in the principles, the core principles of of software development, for lack of a better phrase, those folks are out there now absolutely smoking
Yeah.
partners, even really good partners, even really smart partners who, I think that in a lot of cases, if I have something done, it, I now not all tasks are appropriate to be done inside of the lab that we've built at the Center for Trustworthy AI. That lab is set up for something very specific, which is to deal with early stage experimental technology, proofs of concept, etc. But if I can turn something over to my lab and have it developed in some cases for 20% or even 10% of the cost of what a traditional partner with their traditional, even agile software development approach is going to take. And the reason that I can do it is one, because we're using AI to actually assist in the development, but we're putting that tool in the hands of, we call them, we refer to them as the goats. Like the lab is the greatest of all time, and it's not very many of them, but they are the goats, right? So they're able to do this amazing, amazing work. But they also do it with a startup mentality, right? The philosophy is we need to be able to take something from a picture on a whiteboard to an actual piece of working functionality at a prototype or an MVP level, but it needs to be done in 10 days. And if it can't be done in 10 days, then you didn't scope it properly to begin with.
Hmm.
There's no ceremony, ritual, project management overhead, lengthy discovery periods. It's just, you know what discovery looks like to the lab? It looks like let's spend a couple hours drawing a picture and then we're going to build the picture. So that's
Yeah.
important, I think.
Yeah. I think that. I think vibe coding is an excellent tool for a business user to play around with, to flesh out some ideas he has about a problem he's intimately familiar with at the business, and then hand that off to somebody to here. Build me
Yeah.
something like this. That's going to be a good role for them. And I know that, obviously it's important for you guys and your lab to be working with the newest technologies because, as you mentioned earlier, boundaries, you
Hmm.
kind of need to know where they are, and they're moving frequently,
Hmm.
and you won't know where they are if you're not, working with the latest and greatest. There was an article here last week about Replit, which is one of the AI vibe coding tools that's gotten very popular, blowing out somebody's whole database. And I'm hearing these kind of things, but I think there's a bifurcation in the tool sets that are out there that are also confusing. First, we have people using ChatGTP, not understanding how it can build anything. The other extreme, we've got the people using like Manus, where you literally just type a sentence and it goes
Hmm.
away and builds an entire app, filling in all kinds of gaps without
Hmm.
your knowledge or consent, and obviously produces something that's wow, that's really neat. It's not anything at all what I wanted, but it actually So there was that was too light touch. I think Replit, that one, Cursor, Huggable, they're all kind of aiming at that business owner who thinks, you know what, I don't need to have any IT people at all, because I can write a sentence,
Yeah.
and I think they're kind of overselling their proposition. But that's not. I mean, I don't even call that vibe coding because there's no vibe, right? I mean, you wrote a sentence and basically it just figured out, extrapolated that sentence
Steve,
into every possible
it's just me.
variation and made the decisions for
And this
you.
background,
The
this
vibe
background
coding
makes me
really
feel
is,
like I'm in the void. I'll give you a moment. I trust that my time in the void will be edited out in post-production, but you never know. This is going to be your footage, your video. I suppose you're going to do with me what you want.
okay. Now I'm very curious because I got disconnected. What happened to the recording?
You,
Although,
you're going to get, I think the recording is going to be fine, but you
okay,
are going to get some footage of me talking about how with this background and being here all alone, I feel like I'm in the void, like I'm in, a movie where meeting God is depicted as being in sort of this totally blank white space. So you'll,
yeah, the
you,
uh, the internet here in Brazil is awesome, blazing fast, but occasionally it just decides, I'll take a break.
yeah,
So I switched over to
I'm
the
busy.
Starlink to finish this up, but I see the recording is still continuing, so I think
Still
we'll
rolling.
probably, yeah, we'll probably be okay. I don't remember.
I
Oh, we were
think you're
talking about
fine.
vibe coding.
We're talking about vibe coding. Yeah, yeah. So I think let's switch over to talking about the Ragers.
Sure.
Um, and because these are the folks who I understand the least, right? And and frankly, they annoy me the most because they're the ragers in my LinkedIn feed are becoming so tiresome to me, right? And it's folks who seem to want to complain about everything related to AI, right? From and I think that there's a component of this also that this is also weird to me that presupposes that the purpose of a technology company is to continue to provide people, them in particular, the ragers, with legacy technology that the maker of the technology has decided is not the future. And
All right.
these folks seem to be deeply offended, right? that that it's not denial, right? They acknowledge that their technology of choice is moving on, but they're pissed about it.
Yeah.
And I don't the one that is really top of mind is this nonsense that I see about um the office.com or the Microsoft.cloud landing page. Have you seen this
I haven't.
movement on LinkedIn? Oh my gosh. So it's these folks who are infuriated that if you go to office.com now, which by the way is, I am convinced, a page that almost nobody used to use, right? And by the
Exactly.
way, if everybody used to use it and it had high rates of customer satisfaction, I doubt that Microsoft would have so thoroughly redesigned it. It's not like Microsoft
Yeah,
lacks this data, right?
yeah. The
But now if you go
Copilot,
to it,
Copilot first. Yeah,
exactly. Now if you go to it, you're greeted with a Copilot, a Copilot um, the text box, right? So you can ask Copilot a question. You've got some agents, which is, what even things that are non-agentic are labeled as. Now, one of them, my favorite, is called Researcher, which I use all the time now. The Researcher agent in Copilot is fantastic.
it really is.
Um, and then you have along the left side, you have a link, but you can a page to your apps, and you can click the page and you can pin apps to your menu. And one of the complaints that I've seen is why have they replaced the waffle in the corner that I used to be able to click on to get all my apps? Why have they replaced that with a button a little further down the screen? And now they're forcing me to use Copilot. They're shoving Copilot down my throat. And I find this rage about this topic to be so peculiar because one, well, they're not forcing you to use Copilot. You don't have to buy the license, and if you don't buy the license, it becomes a search interface to help you find what you're looking for. And second of all, is it really a problem that now instead of clicking on a little waffle icon with no text, you are clicking on a piece of text that says apps to get to the same place? So I just
It's the
find
classic.
this sort of cheese moving rage to be very strange and very misplaced.
And the Rangers in particular go about seeking out failure.
Exactly.
They'll bypass any kind of success or dismiss any success, and they're seeking failure to justify their opinions or their thoughts. And why would it be a surprise that Microsoft, who certainly has done it many times in the past, will decide we're going to go this direction and we're just going to force customers that way through whatever means we have to
Right.
change the UI? I mean, this is not. I mean, why would that surprise anybody? Has nobody been listening to what Microsoft's been discussing ad nauseum? I mean, I don't understand why that would be a surprise to anybody. But they do seem to be seeking, and one of the you'll see lots of stories. Oh, this there was this news story about this AI did this and that and the other, and it was a terrible disaster. Well, first of all, I don't know what AI you're talking about. I don't know who put it together. I don't know what problem they were trying to solve.
Mhm.
And if you don't get all three of those things right, someone else was quoting a statistic that 40% of all AI projects will fail. Well, of course they will, because you got a bunch of losers out there using it for the wrong purpose, using the wrong tool, pointing it at the wrong problem because they don't know what they're doing yet. So I fully expect them to fail early and fast. I don't see that as a negative. This is people figuring out what the tool can do and what it can't do, and where it provides value, where it doesn't. But again, they'll kind of pivot everything into a massive failure.
Well, and by the way, that's not far off from the failure rate of all other IT projects. So
Yeah, exactly.
there's some recent academic research on this topic, on the topic of projects and the performance of projects. And what these folks did is they took different types of projects, construction projects, building projects, civil engineering projects, and IT projects, from all across the economy. And what they found is that first of all, 60% of IT projects they finish on time and on budget, which is, I think, pretty surprising to most of us in the industry.
Price that number as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Another which by the way, if you're thinking going back to that's the inverse of the 40% of AI projects that fail, right? So we're already kind of tracking here. Another 20% of IT projects go over budget, but less than 50% over budget. It is the final 20% of IT projects that go over 50% over budget. Um, they, on average, the worst performing 20% of IT projects go 450% over budget, which is by far the worst performing of any project type in the entire economy. The only thing these researchers found that comes close to that poor performance are is the construction of facilities to store nuclear waste. That is
Hmm.
the company that these worst performing IT projects are keeping. So,
Or
you know,
maybe light rail. Light rail would probably go in that category
maybe
too.
it depends on the country. The Spanish are fabulously good at building rail. The Americans and the English, not so much. Not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it is clickbaiting. I mean, you've got on the AI extremes, you've got the folks that are saying, read about this massive AI failure. And then at the other end, you got, read about this massive AI success. So you've got
Right.
kind of people on both sides. Yeah, the ragers drive me nuts as well, but so do just the flat bullshitters, talking about we saved
Of course.
27,000%, and I laid off everybody. I'm here by myself making, $10 million. You get off it. I mean, you're not there yet.
I will tell you that my uh, uh, business partner and my wife, the CTO of our organization, Anna, she has been hard at work and actually is now can point to a legitimate, now that this was not all or even I would say mostly attributable to AI, but a legitimate case study where she's helped an organization save like reduce their development costs for enterprise software by over 90%, which
Yeah.
is a fairly astronomical number, but I can't. I lead the Center for Trustworthy AI, so I feel duty bound to say that's not purely the result of AI. That is in many ways the result of the combination of AI combined with simply sound technical development practices combined with better technology choices, I would say.
One of the things that we're finding that AI is kind of having an impact on is people. So I'm talking to a lot of folks that are like, I need me some of that AI. I need me some of that
Hmm.
AI. We got a whole bunch of processes here that we need to bring in AI so we can automate them all and all this stuff. And you go look at their stuff and you realize there's not a single thing there that couldn't be done with Power Automate.
Hmm.
And really, I don't even see an area where AI would do better, in general in some of these cases. There may be a point here where, a Power Automate flow could jump out to AI and back, but something like that. But the good news is, it's bringing awareness to automation and automation possibilities, even if they had no idea that a lot of these things they wanted to automate could have been automated, for the last, 10 years, But AI has at least woken them up to that. And I do think there's going to be a mix. I mean, I think using deterministic where you can and where it makes sense, and non-deterministic where it makes sense, and melding those two together, I think is a good spot for people to think about being. Don't go all in
Yeah.
on one or the other.
Yeah, and I do think, listen, I think that folks at both ends, as I so commonly find, that folks at both ends of the spectrum, the extreme ends of the spectrum, do a huge disservice to the the actual bottom line of what we're trying to do. And I don't mean the financial bottom line, but so on the one hand, you have folks who are I think these blind optimists, or they're just bullshitters, right? So these are the folks who, I see LinkedIn profiles that claim to be a top voice for artificial intelligence, and
Exactly.
to which I say,
Expert.
listen, let your work speak for you. If you have to claim in your headline that you're a top voice or an expert on something, then you're probably not. But I saw.
Same with thought leader. If you have to tell people you're a thought leader, you're probably not
Right.
one. you
Right.
know?
But we did there's another organization that I know that rebranded. They actually changed the name of their company to have the word AI in it. And I asked them, okay, great, what are you doing with AI? And they basically described robotic process automation to me, RPA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't have the heart to tell them
Marketing.
that that's not actual AI. I just
It's
sort of
marketing.
moved on. It's marketing.
Yeah.
So
It's
so on the one
marketing.
hand, that's a problem. But on the other hand, I do think that the rager problem actually is deeply problematic because when you have folks who complain endlessly and rage against some of the most banal trivialities, like where is the apps button located on this page that now includes Copilot, right? What they're doing perversely is they're actually they're taking airspace and airtime away from some of the real challenges in AI that we need to solve. Among them, the fact that 50% of the internet is written in English. The next largest language on the internet is Spanish, and I believe approximately 6% of the internet is written in Spanish. So what this means is that you have uh, uh,
Yeah.
these large language models are being trained and grounded on primarily on English, which I think over time has the
Having some
potential
connectivity issues still.
to um, to
Not
accelerate
sure if
the
it's me or
decline
you.
of smaller languages. I think that it
See if this
introduces
thing
has a potential to
comes back
introduce
to life, and maybe I
English
need to try and
speaking
wrap it up.
bias in terms of the ideas and the kind of the worldviews that are commonly communicated in English. And I think our internet is trying to reconnect. I'm just going to keep talking so that you get the track here in a minute. Um, um,
Come on,
so
lag.
I think that these are real problems that we need to
Maybe
solve.
Riverside doesn't like it.
But yeah, sorry, Steve. I think you should still get that track from me. But the bottom line is that when we spend the brain space complaining that Copilot is now on the home screen, it takes away from really serious challenges of AI. That whether it's the prevalence of English or whether it is the some of the real harm that a truly autonomous agent, when it becomes
Hmm.
unhinged, can cause, and in some frontier models we actually see now. Um, let's solve those problems. Let's not dwell on whether or not we're mad that Microsoft wants us to buy a Copilot license. That's insane.
I it doesn't bother me that much because there's a lot. They're taking up some airspace, but there's a lot of air. And if I see, somebody is just, yeah, if I see somebody who's just a consistent negative, I mean, nothing of value coming out of that person, I stop following. I got enough stuff to read. I don't need to be tracking
Yeah,
somebody who never says anything about it. And you can spot them. You can spot them.
yeah,
That doesn't mean I'm ignoring anybody who says anything bad about AI because I do want to hear, but not from people who are just seeking failure and continuously. They're not the ragers. The ragers
yeah.
aren't. I just eliminate them from my feed. I mean, I'll still let them follow me to help my follower count, but
Right. I mean, anyone can follow me. Though sometimes with the Ragers, it is like a little bit. It's like uh, I don't want to. It's like this thing you can't take your eyes off of. Like sometimes I want to unfollow one of them because they're driving
car
me
crash.
crazy. But but I want to see what insane thing they say next. So maybe
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
the one being had here, and they know my number. They know I can't turn them off. So
yeah. I've definitely got some folks that I've grown to respect that I didn't know before in the
mhm.
space that are saying things that ring with me, and if it rings to me, then it must be true. So that's at least that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
So, you got anything you wanna pimp while we're having our connection problems and might not make it through?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I have to run for another call, but I will say this, that the Center for Trustworthy AI, we're working really hard to build the center. We have some great members, some great organizations that are invested in the center. Um, Applied Information Sciences, a Microsoft partner, Danco Solutions, another partner, SA Global. And also the law firm, Burgess Salmon, and an increasing number of tech and legal partners that are coming on board and joining the center alongside Cloud Lighthouse and Microsoft. So all of that is to say that our mission is to really create practical tools and capabilities that organizations can use to adopt and embrace AI in a trustworthy way. We do still have some room for founding members to sign on, so would love to hear from really great partners that believe this is the future and want to join us. Um,
Sounds good.
that's
Where can I find it?
They can find it at centerfortrustworthyai.com. They can
Okay,
also find it by getting in touch with me, Andrew.Welch at cloudlight.house. So give me a shout.
very cool, man. All right, Andrew, it's been sorry for the little technical
No, that's
difficulties, but it was a good conversation. I'm sure I'll be able to try and put it together into something. So I'm going to kill the record.
all right.
I'm going to try. Oh, here we go. Stop.